Emma's heart raced as she hurried through the busy airport. The noise of rolling suitcases, chattering travelers, and overhead announcements blended into a loud hum around her. She clutched her passport tightly in one hand and dragged her suitcase behind her with the other. It was late afternoon, and she was tired after a long week at the art retreat in a small countryside town. She had spent days painting in quiet fields, breathing fresh air, and sketching trees and flowers. But now, she just wanted to get home, lie down in her small apartment, and sleep. Emma wasn't used to big cities like this. The airport felt huge and confusing, with so many people rushing in every direction. Emma looked at the screens above her head, trying to find the right gate for her connecting flight. She had only 30 minutes before boarding. She pulled her suitcase along the crowded corridor, pushing through groups of travelers and families. Her eyes scanned for the small orange tag on the handle, her only way to recognize her own bag. At last, she spotted a sleek black suitcase near a bench and quickly grabbed it. It was a little heavier than she expected, but she didn't have time to check carefully. Her mind was full of thoughts about her next steps, about the art exhibition she planned to prepare for next month. She pulled the suitcase toward the gate. As she moved, a faint but pleasant floral scent drifted around her. It was soft, like a gentle breeze in spring. Emma smiled quietly. It was the perfume she always wore, a gift from her mother on her last birthday. It made her feel calm and strong, even when she was tired. Emma's mind wandered to the retreat again. She thought about the friendly people she met there, the small cottage where she stayed, and the warm sun on her skin. She imagined how she would tell her friends about the trip, about the new paintings she had made. Her heart felt a little lighter. Suddenly, a voice called out behind her. "Excuse me. That's my suitcase." The man was tall and dressed in a sharp, dark suit. He looked serious but not angry. Emma stopped and turned around, clutching the suitcase tightly. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice soft. "I thought this was mine." She looked down at the tag. It wasn't orange at all, it was black with gold letters. She hadn't noticed before. The man smiled slightly but said, "This is my suitcase, yes. You must have picked up the wrong one." Emma's cheeks burned. She felt embarrassed but also a little confused. "I didn't mean to. I'm really sorry." The man nodded. "It's okay. Airports are confusing." He looked at her more carefully now, and a small smile appeared. "Are you traveling alone?" Emma nodded. "Yes. I just finished an art retreat, and I'm heading home." The man hesitated for a moment. "I'm James Carrington," he said, extending his hand. Emma shook it, feeling surprised by his calm and polite manner. "I'm Emma," she replied, still holding the suitcase. James looked at the black suitcase and then at Emma's own small bag beside her. "Let's find a way to fix this," he said kindly. They walked together toward the lost and found desk. Emma felt nervous but also curious about this man. He seemed important, maybe because of the expensive suit and the neat watch on his wrist. She wondered what kind of life he lived. At the lost and found, the clerk checked the records and nodded. "You picked up Mr. Carrington's suitcase by mistake. We have your suitcase here." Emma sighed in relief. "Thank you so much." James smiled again. "I think we should exchange them quickly before your flight." Emma agreed, and soon they swapped their bags. But as Emma took her own suitcase, she noticed something strange. Her floral perfume still seemed to linger around James's bag. She sniffed the handle, surprised by the faint scent. James noticed her looking and said quietly, "That's an interesting smell. I don't know why, but it caught my attention." Emma laughed softly. "It's the perfume I always wear. My mother gave it to me." James looked thoughtful, as if remembering something distant. "It's a good scent," he said. "It feels familiar." Emma smiled again. Maybe it brings good memories. After the exchange, James checked his watch. I have a meeting soon. It was nice meeting you, Emma. You too, she said, feeling a strange warmth inside despite the brief encounter. They parted ways, Emma heading toward her gate, and James walking in the opposite direction. Emma didn't realize then that the mix-up with the suitcases was only the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would change both their lives in ways they couldn't imagine. As she waited for her flight, Emma thought about the stranger and the scent of the perfume. She didn't know it, but somewhere in the busy city, James was thinking about her too, about the woman who unknowingly left her mark on his world with just a scent. Emma leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes for a moment, and smiled quietly. The airport noise faded around her. For the first time in a long time, she felt a small spark of hope. James Carrington sat in his sleek, high-rise office overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. But James wasn't looking out the window. His mind kept returning to the strange moment at the airport. The scent. That soft floral perfume. It was unusual for him to notice such things. Usually, James was focused only on work, business deals, numbers, and meetings. But today, something about that smell stayed with him like a quiet song he couldn't forget. He picked up the black suitcase he had taken back from the airport. It was sitting neatly by the door, but now it felt different. There was something more than clothes and gadgets inside. The faint trace of the perfume clung to the handle and the lining. James breathed in gently and closed his eyes. For a moment, he was not the billionaire businessman. He was just a man, curious and a little unsettled. The phone on his desk rang, breaking his thoughts. James answered quickly, putting on his usual confident tone. The call was about a new investment deal, but he only half listened. His mind wandered back to Emma, the woman who had accidentally taken his suitcase. Who was she? He thought. A young artist, she said. She looked tired but kind, with eyes that held stories. James remembered how she had smiled when she talked about her art retreat. There was something honest and simple about her, nothing like the people he usually met in his world. He wondered if she knew how important that suitcase was. Inside, there were rare documents, a few personal items, and some gifts he planned to give his family. Losing it could have been a disaster. But now, the suitcase felt like a bridge, a strange connection between his world and hers. James leaned back in his chair and thought about the perfume again. It was a small thing, but it had touched something deep inside him. Maybe it was a memory from his childhood, or maybe it was just the warmth of a woman's kindness he had not felt in a long time. Meanwhile, Emma sat in her small apartment far from the city's bright lights. She unpacked her own suitcase, still tired but with a gentle smile. The art retreat had changed her. She felt more alive, more sure of herself. The quiet fields, the soft wind, and the creative work had filled her with new hope. Her phone buzzed with a message. It was from a number she didn't recognize. Hello, Emma. This is James Carrington. I wanted to thank you again for returning my suitcase. I hope your flight was safe. Emma blinked in surprise. She didn't expect to hear from him again. She replied quickly, "Thank you for your help, Mr. Carrington. My flight was fine. I hope your meeting went well too." The conversation grew slowly. James was polite but curious, and Emma was cautious but interested. They talked about small things, favorite books, places they wanted to visit, dreams for the future. Neither knew where this might lead, but both enjoyed the simple exchange. Days passed, and James found himself thinking about Emma more often. He wasn't used to letting someone into his thoughts. His life was full of control and plans, but Emma was a reminder of something softer, more spontaneous. He decided to find out more about her. Using his assistant, he learned that Emma was an artist working hard to build her career. She didn't come from a wealthy family, and her life was very different from his. But that didn't matter to James. What mattered was the light she carried, the fresh scent of hope and possibility. At the same time, Emma was surprised by how easy it was to talk to James. He was serious but kind, and his messages felt genuine. She told him about her paintings and the retreat, and he listened like a friend. One evening, Emma sat by her window, looking at the stars. She thought about the strange moment when she took the wrong suitcase. It seemed like a small mistake, but it had brought something new into her life. She wondered what James was doing right now. Back in his penthouse, James opened the suitcase again. He took out a small bottle of cologne and smiled. The scent reminded him of business meetings and luxury, but it couldn't replace the perfume Emma wore. He wished he could tell her how much that simple smell had meant to him. James made a decision. He wanted to meet Emma again, not because of the suitcase, but because she had opened a door in his heart he thought was closed forever. The next day, he called his assistant. "Arrange a meeting with Emma," he said quietly. "I want to meet her in person." The assistant hesitated. "Are you sure, sir? You don't know much about her." James smiled softly. "That's exactly why I want to meet her." Emma's life was about to change, but she didn't know it yet. The wrong suitcase had brought two very different people together, two worlds about to collide in the most unexpected way. For James, it was the beginning of something new. For Emma, it was a chance to dream bigger than ever before. And all because of a scent that lingered long after a suitcase was returned. Emma's small apartment was quiet in the early morning light. She sat on the edge of her bed, still a little sleepy but ready to start her day. Today was important. She needed to prepare for a local art show where she hoped to display her recent paintings. Her mind wandered back to the airport mix-up. The wrong suitcase. The stranger named James Carrington. She smiled softly, shaking her head at the thought. How strange that a simple mistake had led to polite messages and small talks with a man she barely knew. But life often surprised her. Emma stood up and moved to her suitcase. She wanted to unpack everything and get back to her normal routine. But as she opened the black suitcase, the one she had taken by mistake, something caught her eye. Inside the suitcase were not just expensive clothes but also folders, documents, and a small leather-bound notebook. Emma's curiosity grew. She carefully flipped through the papers. They were business plans, contracts, and notes written in neat handwriting. It was clear this suitcase belonged to someone important. Suddenly, Emma found a small envelope taped to the inside of the suitcase lid. Her heart beat faster. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, but it was not addressed to her. Instead, it was a personal note from James Carrington to someone named Michael, talking about trust and a big decision coming soon. Emma's hands trembled slightly. She didn't mean to pry, but she felt connected somehow. This man, James, was not just a stranger, he carried burdens and choices she could barely understand. Her phone buzzed. A message from James appeared. "I hope everything is okay. Did you find your suitcase?" Emma hesitated. Should she tell him about the letter? Or just say everything was fine? She typed quickly, "I found it, thank you. But I also saw some things inside. I hope you don't mind." James replied quickly, "It's okay. Those are personal things, but you can keep them safe. I trust you." Emma smiled. She liked that he trusted her. It made her feel important, even if just for a moment. As she packed away the documents carefully, Emma's thoughts drifted to James again. She wondered about the decisions he was facing. Did he feel alone in making them? Did he ever think about people like her, living a simple life with simple dreams? Later that day, Emma prepared for her art show. She arranged her paintings carefully, making sure each one was perfect. Her favorite was a painting of wildflowers in a field, painted at the retreat. It felt like a symbol of hope and new beginnings. While setting up, Emma's phone rang. It was James again. This time, he asked if she would like to meet for coffee sometime. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She thought about the kindness in his messages and how different he seemed from the people she usually met. After a moment's thought, she said yes. The next day, they met in a small cafe near the city park. Emma arrived first, nervous but excited. She wore a simple dress, and her hair was tied back loosely. She looked around, wondering what James would be like in person. When James arrived, he smiled warmly. He was more relaxed than Emma had expected. His sharp suit was replaced by a casual shirt and jeans. They greeted each other with friendly smiles. They talked about many things: the art retreat, the city, their favorite books. James was fascinated by Emma's stories of painting and nature, and Emma was surprised by how down-to-earth James could be. It was easy to forget he was a billionaire. During their conversation, Emma noticed how James listened carefully, his eyes never leaving hers. She felt safe, like she could share her hopes and fears without judgment. James shared some of his own struggles: how hard it was to balance work and life, and how lonely success sometimes felt. Emma nodded, understanding better now why he seemed so moved by her perfume at the airport. They spent hours talking, and as the sun began to set, they both felt a connection growing between them. It was more than chance or mistake. It was a meeting of two people who needed each other's strength. When they parted that evening, Emma felt a new kind of hope rising inside her. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, but she was ready to find out. James walked away thinking the same. The wrong suitcase had brought them together, but now it was their choice to see where it would take them. The city buzzed with life as Emma walked down the street, her heart still warm from the cafe meeting with James Carrington. The sun filtered through the tall buildings, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. She carried a small bag filled with her favorite sketches and a few freshly made invitations for her upcoming art show. Emma felt something different inside her now, a spark of confidence she hadn't known before. Meeting James had opened a new door, and though she tried not to think too much about what might happen next, she couldn't help but wonder. Unbeknownst to Emma, James was attending a charity gala that evening. The event was held in a grand ballroom filled with chandeliers and polished marble floors. The city's wealthiest people gathered there, dressed in elegant gowns and tailored suits, chatting about business, art, and the future. James moved through the crowd with ease, shaking hands and sharing polite smiles. But his thoughts were elsewhere, drifting back to Emma's bright eyes and honest smile. He kept replaying their conversation in his mind, the way she spoke about her dreams and the gentle scent of her perfume. As the gala's program began, James found himself walking toward the large windows overlooking the city park. He hoped for a moment of quiet away from the noise and expectations. Suddenly, he noticed a familiar figure across the room: Emma. She looked a little out of place in the luxurious setting, but there was a quiet strength in her. Her simple dress and natural beauty made her stand out in the best way. James's heart beat faster. He had not expected to see her here. But the thought of her being at such an event made him smile. Maybe fate was giving them a chance. Emma was attending the gala as a guest of a friend who was supporting local artists. She felt nervous among the high society crowd, but she was determined to enjoy the evening and maybe learn something new. She hadn't planned to meet James again so soon. When she saw him looking her way, she felt a mix of surprise and excitement. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward him. "James," she said softly, "I didn't expect to see you here." James smiled warmly. "Neither did I, Emma. It's a pleasant surprise." They talked as they walked along the edge of the room, away from the loud music and chatter. James asked about her art, and Emma shared stories of her childhood, her struggles, and her dreams. James listened with genuine interest. For once, he was not the billionaire businessman surrounded by pressure, but just a man enjoying a simple, real conversation. As the evening went on, they found themselves laughing more and relaxing. The distance between their worlds seemed to shrink. At one point, a famous art collector approached Emma, praising her paintings and asking if she would consider showing her work in a gallery. Emma was both thrilled and nervous. It was an opportunity she had dreamed of but never dared to expect. James watched her with pride. He saw the hope shining in her eyes, the same hope that had first caught his attention. Later, as the gala began to wind down, James and Emma stood near a large window, watching the city lights sparkle below. James said quietly, "Emma, I'm glad we met that day at the airport. I never thought a wrong suitcase could lead to something like this." Emma smiled. "Me too. It feels like more than just chance." For the first time, they both realized that their meeting was not just an accident. It was the start of a connection that could change their lives. As they said goodnight, James felt a new feeling, hope mixed with excitement. Emma's world was so different from his, but that difference made their bond stronger. Emma walked home under the starry sky, her heart light. She thought about the possibilities ahead and felt ready to face whatever came next. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of flowers from nearby gardens. It reminded Emma of the perfume she always wore and the man who couldn't forget it. In the days that followed the gala, Emma and James found themselves thinking about each other more often than they expected. Their brief time together had left a warm impression, a gentle reminder that life could surprise you when you least expected it. Emma woke up one morning with a sense of determination. She wanted to focus on her art and the new opportunities opening up. The art collector's invitation to showcase her paintings in a gallery was a dream come true. But beneath her excitement, a quiet curiosity about James lingered. She wondered about his life behind the luxury, about the man who had seemed so genuine despite the pressures he surely faced. Emma knew their worlds were different, but she was drawn to his kindness and the way he listened. James, meanwhile, was struggling with feelings he hadn't felt in years. He was used to controlling every part of his life, his business, his schedule, even his emotions. But Emma had unlocked something soft and real inside him. One afternoon, James invited Emma to his penthouse. It was a gesture that surprised her, but she accepted, curious to see the world he lived in beyond their brief meetings. The penthouse was large and modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city. Emma's eyes widened as she stepped inside. The space was elegant but felt cold, as if it were missing something important. James noticed her look and smiled gently. "It can feel that way sometimes," he said quietly. "Money can buy many things, but it doesn't fill everything." Emma nodded, understanding more than she could say. "I think that's true for all of us." They sat down with cups of tea, and the conversation began to deepen. Emma shared stories from her childhood, how she grew up in a small town, how art became her way to express feelings she couldn't say out loud. James listened carefully, sometimes nodding, sometimes asking questions. He told her about his childhood too, about the pressure of living up to family expectations, about feeling alone even in a crowded room. For the first time, James let down his walls. He spoke about fears he had never shared before, about the loneliness beneath his success. Emma reached out and touched his hand gently. "You don't have to carry it all by yourself." Her words felt like a light in the darkness. James looked at her, feeling gratitude and something softer, trust. They talked for hours, sharing hopes, fears, and dreams. The differences in their lives seemed smaller now, replaced by a growing connection. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings became more frequent. They explored the city together, visited art galleries, and shared quiet dinners. Emma introduced James to the simple joys of her world, walking in parks, visiting small cafes, and watching sunsets. James showed Emma his favorite spots too, the rooftop garden of his building, the old library where he found peace, and the hidden corners of the city few people knew. With each visit, Emma saw more of the man behind the businessman. And James discovered the strength and beauty in Emma's spirit. But with closeness came challenges. James's busy schedule often pulled him away. Business meetings, travel plans, and family obligations created distance. Emma felt the frustration of waiting, of wondering if she was part of his life or just a passing moment. One evening, after a particularly long day, James arrived late to their dinner. Emma was already there, her expression tired but hopeful. James sighed. "I'm sorry, Emma. Sometimes I get caught up, and I forget what matters most." Emma reached for his hand. "I know you have a lot to handle, but I want us to be real, no pretending." James looked into her eyes. "I want that too." They talked openly about their fears and hopes. Emma shared her dreams of making a life where she could paint freely, while James admitted his wish to find balance beyond work. In that moment, they promised to be honest with each other, to face the future together, no matter what it held. The perfume Emma wore, the scent that had first drawn James's attention, became a quiet symbol of their bond. It was a reminder that sometimes, the smallest things could change everything. As the night ended, they held each other close, knowing that the path ahead would not be easy, but that together, they could face it. Emma smiled softly, feeling stronger than ever. James's world was complex, but with her by his side, it felt more hopeful, more alive. James looked at Emma and knew that meeting her had opened a new chapter, a chance to discover love and life beyond the walls he had built. Their story was still unfolding, but one thing was clear: they were ready to write it together. The days grew warmer as summer approached, but with the season came new challenges for Emma and James. Their relationship was blossoming, but the world around them was complex and often unforgiving. Emma's art show was only weeks away, and she worked tirelessly to prepare. The gallery where her paintings would be displayed was busy with invitations, press releases, and last-minute details. Emma felt both excited and nervous. This was her chance to show the world her true self. James was supportive, offering to help with connections and resources. But his own life was pulling him in many directions. There were important business deals, family meetings, and unexpected crises. As much as he wanted to be with Emma, sometimes the demands felt overwhelming. One afternoon, Emma sat in her studio, brushing the colors on a canvas. Her phone rang. It was James. She answered with a smile. "Emma," James said, his voice tired but warm. "I'm sorry I can't be there tonight. A business emergency came up." Emma felt a pang of disappointment but didn't show it. "I understand, James. Take care of what you need to." After hanging up, she stared at her painting, a scene of a quiet lake under a soft moonlight. The colors were beautiful, but her heart felt heavy. That night, Emma wondered if their worlds were too different to fit together. She loved James, but she also needed to believe he cared enough to make time for her. Meanwhile, James sat in a cold boardroom, surrounded by serious faces. The emergency was serious, a potential deal that could change his company's future. But his thoughts drifted to Emma and the warmth she brought to his life. He knew he had to find balance before he lost what mattered most. The next day, James made a decision. He arranged for Emma to have the best space at the gallery and invited a few trusted friends who loved art. He wanted to show Emma that her dreams were important to him. When Emma arrived at the gallery, she was surprised to see James waiting for her, smiling warmly. "I'm here," he said simply. Emma's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Thank you, James." The show was a success. Emma's paintings were praised, and she even sold a few pieces. More importantly, she felt seen and supported. After the event, they walked through the city streets under the stars. James took Emma's hand and said, "I want to be better for you, for us." Emma smiled, squeezing his hand. "We both have challenges, but we can face them together." However, the road ahead was not smooth. Rumors began to swirl in James's business circles about his growing attachment to Emma. Some questioned if his focus was slipping. Others whispered that the worlds they came from were too different. James faced pressure from his board and family to choose wisely. They warned him that Emma might distract him from his responsibilities. Emma, too, heard about these doubts. Friends cautioned her to be careful, reminding her of the gap between their lives. One evening, James invited Emma to a quiet dinner. The city lights glittered around them as he spoke honestly. Emma, I won't lie. This isn't easy. People don't always understand us. But I believe in what we have. Emma looked into his eyes and nodded. I believe too. But we have to be strong. Their love was being tested not by lack of feeling, but by the challenges that came with two very different lives trying to merge. They promised to trust each other, no matter what others said. Together, they faced the future with courage, knowing that love was not always simple, but it was worth fighting for. As they walked hand in hand, the scent of Emma's perfume filled the air, a quiet reminder of how their story began, and how far they had come. The city woke up to a gentle morning sun, casting soft golden light over the streets and buildings. Emma stood by her apartment window, looking out at the world that felt bigger and more beautiful than ever before. The past few months had changed her life in ways she never imagined. Her art was no longer just a dream, it was real, vibrant, and alive. She had found a place in the city's art world, and more importantly, she had found someone who believed in her. James Carrington, the billionaire she met by chance through a suitcase mix-up, was no longer just a stranger with a familiar perfume. He was a partner, a friend, and someone who had slowly opened his heart. Today was special. Emma's new art collection was being unveiled at a prestigious gallery, and James was by her side. The event was filled with people from both their worlds: artists, business leaders, friends, and family. Emma felt a mix of nerves and excitement as she moved through the crowd, sharing her story and the meaning behind her paintings. Each piece told a part of her journey: the hope, the struggles, and the new beginnings. James watched her with pride, amazed at the strength and beauty she carried. He saw how far she had come, and he knew their journey was only just beginning. After the event, they walked to a quiet park nearby. The air was cool, filled with the scent of blooming flowers. Emma looked at James, her eyes shining. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly. James took her hand. "Thank you for reminding me what really matters." They sat on a bench, watching the stars begin to appear in the night sky. The city lights sparkled like distant dreams, and for a moment, the world felt still. James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Emma's heart skipped a beat. "Emma," he began, voice steady but full of feeling, "meeting you was a surprise I never expected. You've changed my life in ways I can't explain. I want us to face the future together." He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Emma's eyes filled with tears, a smile spreading across her face. "Yes, James. I want that too." Their love, born from a chance moment and a scent that lingered, had grown into something strong and true. They had faced challenges, crossed worlds, and discovered a future worth building together. As they embraced, the night seemed to glow around them, two hearts united, ready for whatever came next. Emma and James knew that life would still have its ups and downs, but with trust, hope, and love, they could create a story far more beautiful than either could have imagined. And all because of a suitcase and a scent that brought them together.